Good morning from California, Los Angeles. And just a quick show before doing a Meta Planet roundtable with Christina and Sinks in 40 minutes at 10 a.m. PST. Um, because well, just for a couple of reasons, things I want to share before getting into that show. Back in early July, in June, early July, I did a lot of shows on Bitcoin Treasury companies. Um, 12 in the last 2 weeks before going on summer holiday, and then uh, as I went off in a summer house in Denmark for 1 week with family, the price started. This current negative sentiment and the Bitcoin Treasuries companies started the negative sentiment going down, and prices have withdrawn very substantially since then. And then someone from SWC, by the way, that I think it's a great and fun and very active, strong community. SWC, smarter web company in UK, one of the companies that I have personally invested in, and a couple of them said Anders needs to get back doing shows because now the prices have crashed. So that's just obviously a fun little joke. But the timing was perfect there. And now after like summer traveling, just things in private life and distractions, touching grass, all of these things, um, I am jumping back on the horse. As of now, I did a few shows over the last couple of months, but very, very few compared to the previous output. And what I've got this week in just 38 minutes, I'm going live with Christina and Sinks talking Meta Planet. On Wednesday, I have Smarter Webly Wednesday with Jesse and Andrew. Thursday, I have H100 Happy Hour, as I like to call it. I think H100 Happy Hour with Sander and Brian. And so that's three shows right off the bat there this week, and I wanted to do this as well, just to touch on that, just a few things. So one is I'm back, ready to pump your backs, our backs. Hopefully we go higher from here. That would be hilarious if the timing works out, which I honestly think it will, because the sentiment has pushed Meta Planet, Strategy, SWC, H100 probably to about as low as they can go. Not financial advice. They may fall further. I don't know, but I feel very comfortable with this neighborhood as entry, and I've recommended. I'm not giving you financial advice, but friends and family, I have said this is probably the good time to start buying something if you haven't done so already. I personally bought more SWC and MetaPlanet at around these prices using my strategy ATM. And why have I sold strategy? First of all, I still do have some strategy left. But I think the upside is substantial, higher on MetaPlanet and SWC. I want to just preface how I look at those, and that is, I see MetaPlanet at this stage really being about as safe an investment as strategy is, yet with a significantly higher upside. That's why I really do like that stock. I would say SWC is further out on the risk curve because they and on the hat. Shout out to my buddy here locally in LA, at Jonas Salaya. Let me just make sure that I want to give him a proper shout out and see if I can. Let me just So yeah, it's Jonas. So it's on X. It's at Jonas Zelya. Shout out to you, buddy, for making me this hat. I love it. And by the way, it's no vacancy. Obviously, it's there's something in there already, right? So can we say that's the joke? But SWC is so much earlier than Metaplanet in the journey, so probably it's fair to say that it is further out on the risk curve, but also the upside is small though. That's why I also have a position there. A Metaplanet, to be clear, is my biggest position of these. Also have a small bag of H100, but yeah, so that's what I personally have done. Found the funds to buy a little bit more of those, which is I bought around the current prices. So SWC show on Wednesday, H100 on Thursday. Oh, so great! I went to Unconference, the conference in the Bitcoin Treasury Company conference that Tim organized with Ed and Adrian in New York on Wednesday. That was great being over there and participating in that, and Sailor and really a lot of the big names in this space. The company management were there, except Metaplanet, who at the time still was in a quiet period in terms of the international race, so they couldn't participate. They couldn't be talking with anyone. But really great. Got a lot of feedback from a lot of people, and honestly, it's a big part of why I'm doing this. Outside of it, being my passion and hobby to look at these companies and try and make the right investments. Is helping other people, not telling anyone what to do, but sharing my thoughts, which other people at times find useful one way or another in their analysis. Never copy someone else's trade. Everyone's different. Everyone has, there's no one best investment. It's all about who you are, what your situation is, and then there's another combination of investments that are better for you. And a lot of people shouldn't even own stock in this space. And cold storage Bitcoin is the most supreme asset in self custody. But the feedback from people, probably my favorite feedback from people was that they thought I was shorter. Not that I'm short, I'm 6'1", but people thought I was short. And I think in general, when I do these shows, I like to have the screen, like, I don't know, around here, and maybe I should be doing more like this. I look more like my height, but I don't know. So a couple of people told me, oh, I thought you were short. So that was funny, but also a lot of people appreciated the content, and I'm getting back on the horse now as of today to drive to do a lot of shows, because I do love it. I do want to be productive, and I think it's time to turn this sentiment positive. I'm going to do what I can. All right. Also, a couple of thoughts on conference. Adrian's conference last week. So as Sailor was sharing with us, he's kind of the holy grail of treasury company fundraising right now. Let me switch this notification off, the doorbell, although it's a classic. Kind of the holy grail is the preferred stocks, the upside. Once there is a breakthrough, which there is not yet, it is a lot of funds that can be raised, which means a lot of Bitcoin can be bought that way, which means a lot of BTC yield, BTC per share can be driven that way. So it is that very important future area of the future of these companies to drive shareholder value above what Bitcoin can drive as value increase. That's the bottom line here. That's why I'm invested in this space. That's why a lot of people are invested in this space, because these companies they don't all do. That's why you got to be smart about it, but they can outgrow and have done historically, when well managed, the price increase of Bitcoin. So the return is bigger. However, it is not a self-custody sovereign asset, that you can have in your memory even. So there's trade-offs with everything. Let me switch this off. I spoke about it. I didn't. Now it's done. Good. It's a health app notification, so it's I can't completely ignore that thing. Anyways, so Saylor explained to us how right now he's competing with junk bonds as for the preferreds, the strike, strive, stretch. I usually have all four top of my head: strike, strive, stretch. What's the last one? I always have them on top of my head, but obviously sitting live gets in your head. But there's strike, there is strive, stride, and stretch. There you go, all four. He considers himself, when you look at the interest rates, they are really competing with junk bonds from companies at the risk of going bankrupt, and that's why they're not yet delivering more funds to Saylor and to Strategy, so they can buy Bitcoin faster than they currently are. Granted, they just announced 800 Bitcoin, but 80% today, but 80% new Bitcoin, a new purchase as of last week, I guess. But 81% of that was driven by ATMing the common stock. So only 19% from the prefs. But it'll get there. It's a matter of Wall Street waking up to the fact that Bitcoin is a superior collateral. I guess it's not completely surprising when you think about the fact that the world in general do not see Bitcoin as a superior asset. And so for us that are Bitcoiners or in this space, we think it's a no-brainer. This is solid balance sheet. They should be willing to buy these prefs. But let's face it, the rest of the world, Wall Street in general, is not seeing it the same way as us yet. And when they don't see Bitcoin as a superior asset on the balance sheet, they're not willing to buy these very much at the current yield rates of the prefs. Yeah, and I will say stretch, especially. See, here you go again. I lean back, and now that's why people think I'm short, which is funny. I love that feedback in New York at Unconference. But stretch came out the gate raising 2.4 billion. I think a lot of us thought, wow, this is the breakthrough. This is the iPhone moment, as Saylor said. But it has failed to reach $100, so they can't start ATMing it yet. I do believe they only do that at $101. And what became apparent to me was, correct me if I'm wrong, that a lot of people that are already fans of Strategy bought Stretch because they could get it at the offering, the IPO of it at, was it $92 or that ballpark, 94? And they were just buying it, it seems, mainly to get the capital increase up to the $100, like an easy 8 plus minus gain in relatively short time, except we haven't hit the $100 yet. So the breakthrough is not there yet. It's a phenomenal product, but it's not driving fundraising and Bitcoin buying for Strategy yet to the extent that we would love to see. And hence Strategy's yield is still not as high as it was last year. It's not as high as it is for those other companies that I mentioned that I personally have allocated something to, which is Meta, Planet, SWC, and a little bit of H100. However, as we know, Meta, Planet are going to launch two preferreds in Japan in Q4, I believe, is the plan. Looking forward to see that. Personally interested in the one that is convertible for a potential bear market in 26. I would like to take some profits somewhere allocated to the what strategy right now has as strike, because the downside right now, priced at $94, I would say is very limited. If a bear market comes around, the downside is very limited for strike. It will pay a dividend. It's higher in the capital stack in case of bankruptcy, which I don't see happen in any case. I just don't. And if the bull market continues next year, which I'm starting to lean towards that it will, well, bull market, right? There's not a lot of bull market going on. But if the bull market continues, because 10 strike can convert to one MSTR, which no one will do, because you have the yield, but it'll push the floor of the price of strike higher. No one's going to convert it because you got the yield and you're higher in the capital stack, which means much higher level of capital securement or whatever. That's not the right word, but you know what I mean. That's why I'm planning to hold strike. So for survival through a potential bear market. But if there's no bear market and Bitcoin and strategy and the rest continues to go up, then it will be a position that is not just as lame as cash that loses value all the time because they keep printing more, but will continue to go up, not maybe at the same pace initially as strategy, but it will eventually, because it's just going to strategy MSTR is going to lift the floor price of strike once it gets high enough. Very curious to see the similar perpetual convertible pref from Meta, Planet. As I said earlier, I do see the upside of Meta, Planet higher than strategy. And let me make again it clear, I see strategy as a very safe investment that will significantly outperform Bitcoin. So strategy is a great place to be. I just see Meta, Planet really as safe at this point, but with more upside. But owning both could make a lot of sense, I think, for several people. None of what I say is financial advice. It's financial entertainment at the best. And if you do like it, hit like and subscribe. And if you want to see more of my content on YouTube, you can hit that bell button. And next show is going live in 21 minutes, Meta Planet Roundtable. All right, last couple of points then, so I can get a breather before we go live in 21 minutes with Christina and Sinks on the same channel, both being streamed live to X and YouTube. The one thing that I think is the sleeper of strategy, that, as I'm saying, I believe Meta Planet upside, SWC, etc., is higher. Strategy has one thing going for it. It will be the first. I mean, it's got several things going for it, but it will be highly likely be the first of the Bitcoin Treasury companies to enter S&P 500. It's already qualified. No one else is close to being qualified. It didn't happen here with the 5th September announcement. It could happen in December, maybe a quarter later. If they're very likely to be the first in S&P of these companies, which will give the company itself a higher credit rating, which should spill over to a higher credit rating on just any credit rating for their prefs, which right now they have none on, and that's why the yield is so high, and Sailor strategy have to pay such a high interest rate to borrow money that way, that will improve. And that combined with them having the by far largest Bitcoin stack on the balance sheet in the world should allow Strategy to borrow money from the market on the prefs at a lower interest rate, at a lower yield than the other companies. However, that may not be a big difference. Like some of these smaller companies may have to pay a higher yield, especially in US. They will have to pay a higher yield because they cannot compete with the solidity of Strategy. But if they do so, uh, well, having those credit ratings, having that balance sheet, that is something that'll allow them to borrow money cheaper, and no one really can compete with that. However, the smaller companies might still have a higher BDC yield because they come from a smaller place. So that doesn't mean that, well, Strategy on a stock level will outperform. It's yet to be determined, but I will say it is an upside for Strategy to be the first, highly likely to be included in S&P 500 and having the best credit ratings on their prefers, right? Let me see the last couple of notes here I had. High yield. That was pretty much it. Congrats to Strive for the announced merger talks with Semler. I think it makes sense for Semler because their MNAV is 0.85, and you can't use the most important tool in generating BDC yield, which is ATMing this stock and arbitraging the premium on the stock to the value of the Bitcoin behind each stock. So they were, like most other US Treasury companies, kind of stuck at that not very attractive place of an MNAV very close to 1 and even below 1. I hope to learn today. Please feel free to tell me how paying a 210% premium for the Semler stock makes sense for Strive, because paying such a big premium, isn't that same as buying the Bitcoin at more than twice the price of the Bitcoin itself? If you can follow, I mean, that premium to me, which is obviously something I'm getting wrong because that whole team is way smarter than me individually, and there's like 15 of them. How does that make sense? I'm looking forward to trying and digest that. So yep, on that note, thank you for tuning in. The Treasury company market, the negative sentiment started when I kind of unplugged and went on a summer holiday in Denmark, and I'm back now. I'm here to turn around the momentum. Jokingly, of course, it's very convenient time here as MetaPlanet announces their they did their huge international raise and just announced more than 5,000 Bitcoin purchase today. So very excited about that. But it would be fun if that all works out. So in summary, in 15 minutes, I go live here, same place with Christina and Sinks for a MetaPlanet roundtable, a focus on MetaPlanet. And just to give you an idea of what we are gonna go through, we're looking at the raise. We are we're going to talk about them also allocating some of those funds to selling BTC put options, which has been a historic driver of significant income for MetaPlanet. Are we going to talk about if shorting happened for MetaPlanet, or was it just sentiment? Simon's tweet, "You won't borrow," to Jim Chanos, that's his name, right? If that has had any potential negative effect as a bit of a taunt, company communication and transparency, responses to questions from investors that both Simon and Dylan have been responding to, the FTSE index inclusion, and talk about end goals for their BTC stack, and looking at what are we looking forward to. Further, also, I do want to start putting together really an overview of, all right, these different companies are using different tools to raise funds to buy Bitcoin, to create a BTC yield, to drive shareholder value. And I just want to create for myself and for you guys an overview and make sure I get all of them accounted for. So when I look and when we look at each of these companies, that we can make sure to include everything and see this particular company, are they able to use all the tools, or is something lacking, and who's doing something the others are not, etc., to just make better investment decisions. There's the ATM, obviously. Then there's international institutional stock sales, which is not an ATM, but it's similar concept of issuing new shares. It's just done in chunks, tranches, I guess, is what I call the preferred perpetual debt, convertible bonds being denominated in Bitcoin or cash, fiat, and selling BTC options. So on that note, back in 15 minutes with Meta Planet Roundtable. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you have a great day, and hope to see you in 15 minutes on Meta Planet Roundtable. Thank you.